What if I told you that in one of Africa's most vibrant nightlife capitals, the most valuable commercial real estate isn't some, massive multi-level nightclub downtown.
Right.
It isn't a VIP terrace with a city view. It's actually a WhatsApp group.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, I want you to imagine, just for a second, trying to run a high-stakes, really fast-paced hospitality business entirely on vibes.
Yeah, no spreadsheets.
Exactly. No spreadsheets, no predictive algorithms, literally no real-time inventory tracking.
Mm.
You're just ordering thousands of dollars of stock based entirely on what you, I don't know, overheard a couple people talking about on a Friday night.
Which, I mean, that's essentially gambling with a storefront.
Right.
You're committing real capital based on anecdotal evidence, basically just hoping the crowd's mood next weekend matches the mood you sort of perceived last weekend.
And from a purely financial perspective, that is just a terrifying way to operate.
Wow, absolutely terrifying.
But for decades, that was the operational standard for the liquor market in Kampala. I mean, it was this landscape governed almost entirely by the intuition of bar owners and those unpredictable, constantly shifting whims of late-night crowds.
Yeah, you just kind of guessed what the city wanted to drink.
And if your intuition was off, you were left sitting on boxes of really expensive liquid while, a competitor 2 streets over capitalized on the actual trend.
Because it was an environment where survival depended heavily on luck. I mean, you needed your finger on the pulse, but because that pulse was anecdotal rather than empirical, businesses were just constantly misallocating their resources.
Right, buying the wrong products for the wrong venue.
Exactly.
Well, that era of guesswork is officially coming to an end. Today, we are taking a deep dive into this really extensive market report. It's titled The Sweet Red Revolution.
And it is a fascinating read.
It really is. It's packed with Q1 2026 performance data pulled straight from Kampala's central business district. And our mission today is to explore how hard data and empirical logic are just systematically replacing that old, gut feel.
We're going to look at how this data is fundamentally reinventing the very concept of a night out.
Yeah, and the counterintuitive secrets about consumer behavior we're about to uncover, I mean, they apply far beyond just the hospitality sector.
Because human behavior is often really surprising once you actually start mapping it with transaction data.
Right.
The narratives businesses tell themselves about why people buy things or how they consume them, they frequently just fall apart when you look at the raw numbers. We build these complex theories, but the ledger usually tells a much more straightforward story.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the very first major data point, which is all about flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And specifically, the data is pointing to the absolute death of the dry palate.
Yeah, this is a massive structural shift in consumption habits. Well, for a very long time, the prevailing assumption in the industry, which was driven mostly by traditional wine culture, was that as a market matures, consumer palates naturally gravitate toward complex, tannic, dry wines.
Like, that's the established prestige model.
Exactly. But the data from Kampala is aggressively refuting that. The market has decisively pivoted away from those complex profiles. Sweetness is now the primary power player.
I mean, I'm looking at this data, and it really makes you question the traditional snobbery of wine connoisseurs.
Oh, completely.
You have this entrenched culture of people talking about, complexity and notes of leather and oak. But the volume data shows a market that overwhelmingly values sugar-forward accessibility.
Yeah, those approachable, fruit-forward profiles aren't just popular, they are completely taking over the volume metrics.
The contrast in the numbers is just stark. Like, look at the influential distributor and wholesaler channel. There's a product called Four Cousins Natural Sweet Red, and it has emerged as an absolute titan here.
It's incredible.
It commands 2.07% of total market volume.
Which, in a highly fragmented beverage market, capturing over 2% of total volume with a single brand is a staggering achievement.
Right. Especially when you compare it to the prestigious dry labels. The report specifically highlights the chocolate block, which is this highly acclaimed, complex, dry wine.
Right, very famous.
And in the bar and restaurant segment, it holds a volume share of 0.03%.
0.03.
Yeah. That isn't a market footprint. It's a rounding error.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of this shift. It is not just a passing flavor trend.
So it's not just people deciding they want something sweet this month.
No, not at all. It's a structural pivot toward accessibility as the core driver of consumption. When a drink is highly accessible, it doesn't require specialized knowledge to enjoy.
Right, you don't need a sommelier.
Exactly. You don't need to know the vintage, you don't need a specific food pairing, and you don't need someone to explain it to you. It dramatically reduces the friction for the consumer.
It's essentially the difference between film industries. Like those dry, prestige wines are operating like critically acclaimed indie
Oh,
films.
that's a great way to put it.
Right. The critics love them, they win awards, people rave about them at exclusive dinner parties, but the theater seats are totally empty.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a sweet red like Four Cousins is the massive crowd-pleasing summer blockbuster. It doesn't require an essay to understand it. Everyone gets it immediately, and most importantly, it's the product that actually keeps the theater's lights on and pays the staff.
The structural comparison is really accurate, particularly regarding how capital is utilized. Because businesses that cling to that old prestige indie film model, stocking up on highly complex dry wines because they think it elevates their status, they're taking on enormous uncompensated risk.
Just tying up their cash.
Tying up their working capital in completely stagnant inventory. It just sits on a shelf gathering dust, offering zero liquidity.
While the accessible sweet reds are churning through the supply chain and generating actual daily cash flow. Well, if people are actively ditching these complex, prestigious drinks that require a dedicated environment and an expert to explain them, and instead they're heavily buying accessible, sweet beverages. That has to fundamentally change the venue, right?
Oh, it changes everything about the venue.
Because you don't need to sit in a high-end dining room to enjoy a glass of fruit-forward sweet red. You can just drink it on your couch.
The product profile ultimately dictates the consumption environment. If the friction of the liquid is low, the fiction of the venue needs to match it.
Right.
Which brings us to the data on where these transactions are actually happening and the complete reinvention of the night out into the night in.
Yeah, I'm looking at these bar and restaurant numbers, and they almost don't seem to make sense given Kampala's reputation.
They're shockingly low.
The traditional bar and restaurant channel, the flashing lights, the massive sound systems, the high street nightclubs, it now accounts for a surprisingly humble 7.08% of total volume.
It's just 7%.
It's just 7. Meanwhile, the distributors and wholesalers control over 30% of sales value. But the real focal point of the report is this invisible engine operating underneath it all, the mobile stockist channel.
The mobile stockists represent such a fascinating logistical evolution. This channel alone now accounts for 12.29% of total volume.
Wow.
Let that sink in. A decentralized network of mobile sellers is significantly larger in volume than the entire traditional physical bar and restaurant sector combined.
And the undisputed star of this mobile channel is Bailey's Irish Cream, making up 0.54% of all transactions.
Which tracks logically.
Yeah, because Bailey's is practically the definition of a comfort drink. So what does this all mean? Is a physical bar completely dead?
Wow.
Because when I look at the scale of this mobile stockist volume, it really reminds me of ghost kitchens in the restaurant industry. Or even like the streaming service revolution.
The ghost kitchen analogy is structurally very sound here.
Right, because a ghost kitchen strips away the dining room, the waitstaff, the expensive interior design, and just focuses on the raw logistics of food preparation and delivery.
Yes.
And these mobile stockists are doing the exact same thing to the VIP club experience.
Yeah.
It's like how Netflix brought the movie theater to the living room. WhatsApp delivery brings the VIP terrace to the home. You don't have to get dressed up, pay a cover charge, or fight your way to a crowded bar.
No, you just send a WhatsApp message, and a decentralized fulfillment node brings a premium bottle straight to your living room.
Like, brilliant.
The report aptly refers to these operators as the shadow landlords of the market.
Shadow landlords, I love that term.
They are dominating the space without holding any traditional commercial leases. Their real estate isn't a brick-and-mortar building downtown. It's a localized network on their smartphone, a highly active WhatsApp group, and a motorcycle.
Unbelievable.
By stripping out the massive overhead of a physical venue, the rent, the security, the lighting, they can operate with incredible capital efficiency.
And from the consumer side, the decision-making process completely changes.
Exactly, because the modern consumer weighs friction above almost everything else. If you're deciding what to do on a Friday evening, the high friction of getting ready, coordinating transport, and dealing with a crowded venue that's competing directly against a zero-friction alternative.
Right. Having a perfectly chilled bottle of Bailey's arrive at your door in 20 minutes requires literally zero effort.
Exactly. The desire to consume hasn't disappeared, But the logistical hurdles of the traditional night out are being aggressively bypassed.
Okay, but if sales are migrating rapidly to these decentralized WhatsApp stockists and local supermarkets, the logistical challenge for the people supplying them is entirely different.
Fundamentally different.
Because if I run a bustling nightclub, I have a captive audience. I can push certain products through promotions or impulse buys at the bar. But if you're a mobile stockist delivering directly to a home, how do you decide what inventory to hold?
You can't rely on a drunken impulse buy at 2 a.m.
Exactly. When people order delivery, they know exactly what they want before they even pick up their phone.
The purchase intent in a delivery model is highly specific. The consumer isn't just browsing, they are executing a predetermined choice.
Right.
And that completely changes the mathematics of what you keep in your very limited storage space. You need highly reliable, perfectly predictable products.
And this is exactly where the underdog data in the report emerges. Because big global marketing budgets are actively losing to relentless retail consistency.
Yes, they are.
The true financial superstars of this decentralized market are the items that most people would consider completely boring.
The data concerning Old Monk rum perfectly illustrates this point.
Old Monk rum, 750 milliliters.
Yeah.
The report describes it as a secret rum executing a quiet conquest of the retail shelf. It captured 2.36% of total market transactions.
Which is huge.
To put that number in perspective, Bacardi Carta Blanca 1 liter, which is a global giant with massive international advertising budgets and billboards everywhere, it only recorded 1.63%. And Old Monk is specifically dominating in Tier 2 supermarkets, pulling in 1.36% of transactions in that channel alone.
Tier 2 supermarkets are crucial battlegrounds. These are the mid-sized, neighborhood-level stores.
Okay.
They aren't destination hypermarkets. They're the stops you make on your daily commute. In these high-frequency, routine-driven locations, Old Monk is consistently outperforming global behemoth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does a brand with a fraction of the marketing budget beat a giant like Bacardi in these neighborhood locations?
It comes down to routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bacardi relies on event-driven marketing parties, big nights out, flashy promotions. But Old Monk relies on habit. It's like that reliable local diner that never closes versus the flashy tourist trap downtown. It's the staple that people pick up on a Tuesday evening without even thinking about it.
It has achieved a localized cult status. If we connect this to the bigger picture of inventory management, we're looking at the strict mathematics of stability. For an inventory manager operating on thin margins or limited space, the most valuable items aren't necessarily the ones with the highest profit margin per bottle.
Always really.
No, the true value lies in what the report calls the predictables. These are scales stock-keeping units that register a 0.00% standard deviation of volume.
Let's break that down for a second. 0.00 deviation.
Meaning it doesn't change.
Consumer demand does not fluctuate at all from week to week. It is a perfectly flat, predictable line of consistent sales.
Precisely. The report highlights Jameson Black Barrel 750 milliliters and Captain Morgan Dark 1 liter as the gold standards of this stability in the wholesale segment. You know exactly how many units you will sell next Tuesday, which means you know exactly how many to order on Monday.
Okay, wow.
Now, contrast that mathematical perfection with a popular volume anchor like Niederberg Cabernet Sauvignon. The data reveals that Niederberg suffers from a staggering 715.52% volume volatility.
715% volatility.
Yeah.
That isn't a business. That's a roller coaster. I mean, how do you even manage an operation when your core product fluctuates that wildly?
You manage it with extreme difficulty. Let's walk through the real-world mechanics of a 715% volatility rate.
Okay.
Imagine you're managing a warehouse or a large retail store. Last week, Niederberg flew off the shelves, so you assume the trend will hold. You place a massive order to ensure you don't stock out.
Makes sense.
The pallets arrive, the invoice is paid, but this week, consumer interest completely vanishes. Your working capital, the actual cash you need to pay your staff, pay your electricity bill, or buy other products, is now physically trapped in glass bottles sitting in your storeroom.
So you are functionally broke because your wealth is locked in stagnant inventory.
Exactly. And the reverse is equally damaging. If you under-order to protect your cash and demand unexpectedly spikes, you stock out.
Right. Your shelves are empty.
Your shelves are empty, you lose immediate revenue, and you damage the reliability of your store in the eyes of the consumer. This is what we call lumpy revenue. It creates chaotic replenishment cycles that constantly threaten the liquidity of the business.
So those boring staples,
Yeah.
the Old Monks and Captain Morgans with zero standard deviation, They aren't just beverages sitting on a shelf.
They are vital financial instruments. Carrying those low volatility performers is a non-negotiable risk mitigation strategy.
Because they guarantee a baseline of steady, perfectly predictable cash flow.
They act as the financial safety net that allows the business owner to survive the chaotic, capital-draining swings of the highly volatile items.
Okay, so I'm looking at this entire landscape, and I'm trying to figure out where the high end sits. We've established that sweet, accessible drinks are fundamentally crushing dry wines.
Yes.
We know the living room and the decentralized WhatsApp delivery nodes are beating the physical nightclubs.
Yeah.
And we know that reliable, boring staples are the actual financial engines of this home delivery market.
Right.
But if everyone is drinking at home to avoid friction, what happens to the ultimate status symbols?
Well, the luxury tier requires an entirely different analytical framework.
Right, because if the entire psychological point of buying a wildly expensive bottle of champagne, the kind with a sparkler attached to it, is to have everyone in the VIP section look at you.
Yeah.
Why would anyone buy it to drink in the privacy of their own living room? How does luxury champagne survive the transition to a WhatsApp economy?
The data provides a very distinct answer by highlighting a two-tiered economy regarding status. We're looking at the mechanics of attainable luxury. In this specific segment, the traditional retail rules completely decouple.
Decouple how?
The physical volume of a product no longer correlates directly to its financial value to the business.
Right, because looking at the data, the ultimate outlier is Dom Perignon 750 milliliter. It registers a minuscule 0.04% volume share. Practically speaking, compared to the broader market, no one is drinking it.
Right.
However, it commands a massive 978% price index relative to the market baseline.
It is priced at nearly 10 times the baseline average.
So my immediate deduction here is, if a product has essentially zero volume, how does a business justify allocating highly valuable capital and shelf space to hold it?
That's a great question.
It reminds me of the auto industry. When you go to a major international auto show, right in the center of the pavilion, the manufacturer always places a multi-million-dollar concept car.
Oh, yeah.
It has gull-wing doors, absurd specifications, looks completely futuristic. The manufacturer knows they are never going to sell that specific car to a regular consumer.
But it gets them in the door.
Exactly. That concept car acts as a magnet. It pulls people into the pavilion, they absorb the prestige of the brand's badge, and then they walk over to the sensible showroom floor and sign a lease for the brand's standard luxury sedan. The concept car creates a halo. The sedan drives the actual corporate revenue.
The concept car analogy works structurally, but in retail environments, the mechanism is slightly different. It's less about driving foot traffic and much more about psychological price anchoring.
Okay, tell me more about that.
When Dom Perignon sits on the top shelf with a 978% price index, it completely recalibrates the consumer's perception of value. It creates a psychological ceiling of extreme prestige. But the luxury sedan that people actually drive home, the product that generates the revenue, is Moet and Chandon Imperial Brut.
And the data perfectly supports that behavior. Moet is operating as the master of attainable luxury.
Yes.
It's the frequency leader in the premium tier, clocking 19 total transactions and driving a highly significant 1.67% of total value share in the wholesale channel.
Because when a consumer sees the astronomical price of the Dom Perignon, the Moet sitting on the shelf below it suddenly feels like a highly rational, attainable luxury choice.
Like a bargain almost.
Exactly. The consumer gets to participate in the prestige halo of the champagne category, but at a price point and frequency that actually generates consistent unit velocity for the seller. This is how luxury labels survive the structural shift toward the night in. They operate as crucial prestige builders in the on-trade, proving that sheer volume isn't the only mathematical route to driving significant value.
So a product doesn't need hundreds of daily transactions if its mere presence dramatically elevates the perceived value and margin of the products around it.
Exactly. The retail shelf is a completely engineered psychological space.
Which leads us to the ultimate conclusion of this report. The analysts have synthesized all of this data. The sweet reds, the mobile stockists, the predictable rums, the price anchors, into what they are calling the Q2 specialization mandate.
The mandate is highly specific. Generalized distribution models are obsolete.
Completely dead.
A business owner can no longer lease a warehouse or open a bar, fill it with a generalized assortment of products, and hope the market naturally sorts it out.
Because the market has fractured into a specialized two-tiered reality. Businesses must now strategically fracture their inventory to match.
You have to build a foundation of stable household staples.
The Captain Morgans, the Jamesons, the Old Monks.
Right. These act as your predictable safety stock. They provide the daily liquidity to keep the business operational. Then, and only then, do you layer in your highly volatile anchors and your extreme high-value prestige items.
So every single scary you, holding space on a shelf, must be explicitly aligned to its specific trade channel's empirical drivers.
You need a mathematical justification for every bottle. Are you stocking a product because it fits the zero-friction, lightning-fast delivery profile of the WhatsApp mobile stockist? Or are you holding it specifically for its psychological price anchoring power in a physical retail space?
And if a business cannot answer that question with hard data, that product is simply draining capital.
It's just bleeding cash.
So let's bring this massive data matrix back to you, listening right now. You don't need to run a supply chain in Kampala to recognize how these hidden mechanisms are steering your daily life.
That's very true.
The next time you pick up your phone to message a delivery service for a bottle on a Tuesday night, or you grab a reliable, familiar six-pack from your neighborhood grocery store simply because it's easy, I want you to realize what is happening behind the scenes.
You're part of the data.
You are actively participating in a massive, invisible ecosystem. Your preference for convenience over friction and your routine habits are systematically dismantling old-school business models. The retail landscape around you is being aggressively optimized to favor cold, empirical logic over guesswork.
This raises an important question, which the authors of the report actually pose as their final challenge to the industry. They ask, has Kampala finally decided that the best drink is simply the one that is easiest to share at home?
Now, that question points to a profound shift in how we assign value. I mean, think back to that initial image of the sweaty, chaotic nightclub, where success was built entirely on vibes and the intense social pressure to be seen holding the right bottle in the right VIP section.
Yeah.
As our entire world becomes highly decentralized, hyper-connected by mobile networks, and relentlessly focused on removing every possible point of friction, is the fundamental concept of luxury shifting across the board.
It certainly seems that way.
Are we permanently moving away from the need for public display in crowded venues and migrating entirely toward private, completely on-demand convenience? As the data suggests, maybe the ultimate status symbol isn't a sparkler on a bottle in a club. Maybe the ultimate luxury is never having to leave your couch at all.
First,